Welcome to Streets and Eats, the podcast where we want to inspire your next trip by telling you about some fantastic destinations and the best food to eat while you're there. Now remember, until the world opens completely back up and you feel safe to travel again, use this time to research and plan. But I have it on good authority that Americans can travel to Germany now, so that's why we've picked Germany for this episode. We figured you might want to know what our favorite places to go in Germany are.
You see, we've got a lot of background in Germany. Jim and I met and married in Germany when we were in the Air Force back in the early 80s. And we have lived in Germany a total of 15 years. So we feel like we're locals, and we definitely have the scoop on everything German. We were even there when the wall was coming down and they were making the reunification between Western and Eastern Germany. So we just love everything about Germany, and traveling around it is gorgeous. We love the food. We can't say enough good about it. But we do have our favorites, and that's what we want to talk to you about right now, our top 5.
Well, talking about being there during reunification and the fall of the wall, Berlin has to be our favorite.
Yeah, it is.
And we were in Berlin
when the wall
shortly after the wall came down. We weren't there like at the time when it was coming during the big mass protests and people were climbing up on the wall. Ronald Reagan says, "Tear down that wall." We were in Germany, but we weren't in Berlin at that time. It was just a really great time to be in Germany. And so we did get to Berlin a couple weeks later, and it was just surreal. We'd been there before, of course, at the height of the Cold War, when it was East and West. I was in the Air Force, and we were able to go through Checkpoint Charlie, the real Checkpoint Charlie, not what's there now, and into East Germany for a day and then come back out. You could only spend one day there. You had to be back out before sunset.
Which all added to the allure, of course.
Really, which was surreal in and of itself.
It really was.
But then to go back when we got there with our 2 young daughters, I think they were like 4 and 5 at the time.
When the wall had come down.
And it was just this, we got there in the evening, we checked into our hotel and we're like, let's go see what's going on. And we loaded up the car and we found a place not far from Checkpoint Charlie where the wall was really splitting the city as clearly as you can see, almost built through buildings and stuff. And we parked the car. It's dark. It's a cold December night, I think. We're all bundled up and we get out and all you can hear is chink, 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 bing, 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 banging and tapping and hammering. And it's people all up and down the wall, chopping up pieces of the wall for mementos, souvenirs, or just to tear it down, or just to get out there and hit the thing with a hammer.
And be part of that change.
So here we are with our little daughters, and somewhere they found an old pole from a chain link fence, and they've got it. We've got this picture of them using it like a battering ram.
Yep.
Ching, ching. We were able to climb up on the wall.
It was amazing.
It was really incredible. Of course,
we really felt like we were part of history.
Got several pieces of it for friends and for ourselves. We still have one on our fireplace mantle. So Berlin really has a place in our hearts. And we'd still go back pretty regularly.
Well, when we were living in Germany, we used to go probably once a year because we just have such a draw to it. There's so much to do there. It's got its own character. It's been influenced by so many different peoples, when it was divided into 4 different distinct parts of the city, the 4 different allies. So there was that Russian part, and there's this, it's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's got a fashion sense. It's got great food. It's got history. It's got, if there's a city in the world that's got it all, Berlin is it.
Yeah. It's just a great city, and there's so much to do there. One of the things I really like there is the way they've got things kind of centralized. So you want to go to museums, you go to the museum island. And there's so many to choose from. You can't do them all in one day or even really all in one trip. But the dome that's there is incredible. I really like the archaeology museum. If you want to go to a museum, you go to Museum Insel. Other places to go, of course, the radio tower and the shopping around there. Alexanderplatz. Go to Potsdamer Platz. And in a lot of these places, they still have pieces of the wall.
And they definitely have placards or information signs or
Or
little bits of a building or a window or something that shows you what it was like
or
during
a brick line
Yeah.
tracing the path of the division in the city, the wall. So that's really cool. There's the East Side Gallery, where they've kept a very long section of the wall along the river and have artists come in and paint murals on both sides of the wall that's left there. And that's really some stupendous art.
If you can swing it, if you go to Berlin, summer is fun. I mean, go in summer too, of course, because that's when a lot of people are traveling. But for me, the best time to go to Berlin is sort of midwinter. The bleaker the day,
Right.
the more it feels like Berlin should feel to me as a Cold War hub. And just the whole having to escape. And I don't know, it just adds sort of the mystery that should exist.
I think so. Yeah. Spring, summer, fall.
I mean, they're
beautiful.
all great. They're all great.
Wonderful times to go. You can sit in a beer garden, have a good beer, have some good food. But yeah, I agree. Everything's still open in the winter. It's a big city, so it's not like it's reliant on tourism to be open. Like
And there's great Christmas markets in the winter.
An excellent Christmas market there with all that, the Christmas market food. My favorite, of course, is the sauteed mushrooms.
Well, but that's a whole nother podcast. We'll
Christmas
do that later on.
markets in Germany, definitely. There's plenty to talk about there.
But there's lots to do. There's lots to eat. There's lots to see. One of the oldest restaurants in the country is there.
Zum letzten Instance.
And I mean, it had people like Napoleon has eaten there. Napoleon ate in the same restaurant that I ate in. I mean, how cool is that?
And it's great food.
It's great.
Pork knuckle.
It's great German food. It's very good. Yeah. I mean, we suggest that you try one of their oldest dishes, and that's the grilled pork knuckle, which actually
Always
anywhere is always good. And chase it down with the gold.
You definitely need reservations there. It's a pretty popular place, and it's not very big. So make reservations. You won't have any problem with that. Restaurants will all speak English if you can't make it right online. So don't worry about that. Our other favorite, we go every time, is the Osteria Caruso.
It's
just an Italian restaurant. It's what we imagine or envision as a typical Italian restaurant. It's not really
a German Italian restaurant.
Yeah, for
because
us,
it is different than American Italian or Italian. But it's very good.
And everything that they have is great. We can't resist. We always get 1 4-cheese pizza. I don't know what makes their pizza so much better than everybody else's, but it's great. And we have that for the table. And then everybody else, of course, orders whatever. It's always good. And that's by the Potsdamer Platz, too.
But the thing about Berlin and food, though, is you can find any type of food, any type of day. And one of the most important foods that you pretty much have to try while you're in Berlin is the currywurst. As you know, as everybody in the world knows, sausage is a huge thing in Germany. So they had their own sausage called the currywurst, which is a child favorite all around the country. It still is.
Well, you know the history of it, right? And in fact, that's something you should do in Berlin is go to the Currywurst Museum.
Which was so much fun.
It's just a fun, quirky museum, and you can learn all about this.
And it could be, I guess it's supposed to be for kids, but I don't know. Jim and I didn't have any kids with us, and we had
kids
a
and kids at heart. But it's a war product. It's a post-war product. Yep. When things were tight, they didn't have much, but they could get worst. When the Americans came, of course, they could get ketchup, and curry powder was available. I don't know why. Curry powder.
I don't know either, but
certainly not something the Americans brought.
It's a great.
But it was.
It's a great combo, and kids love it.
And that's all it is. It's a grilled or any way you want to cook, depending on what you have available. Usually it's grilled if you buy it in one of the kiosks.
Which are all over the
grilled
city.
Wurst, like a Metwurst, not a bratwurst. It's more of I think it's a beef wurst.
I don't know if it's beef, but it's more red for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's not bratwurst. And ketchup with a really heavy dose of curry powder mixed into it. And that's it. They slice up the wurst into discs and squirt over the curry ketchup. And you get a little plastic 2-pronged fork and you dip it and eat it. And you just chow down. Kids love it, like you said. Usually it comes with a brötchen, but it's not like most places when you get a wurst and a brötchen, the wurst is in the brötchen. It's not like that. It's cut up into pieces and you just eat them separately.
It's good with fries, pumice. Anything's good with pumice anyway. But the good thing about currywurst is it's quick, it's easy. Like Jim said,
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's a kiosk. You stand up and eat it. Kids are happy, adults are happy, and it's Berlin. It's what Berlin is.
You can get currywurst all over Germany, but that's where it originated. And that's really where it's at its best.
So while you're doing the massive amounts of sightseeing that you can do in this city, stop by and have a currywurst for sure.
One of the museums by the currywurst that's also worth going to is the Ritter Sport.
It's not really a museum. It's more of a shop with a museum
Chocolate
in it.
World, they call it. Has a little bit of a history of chocolate and Ritter. But really its draw is the fact that you can go in and they've got all the chocolate ready to pour into a mold and you can make and mix your own Ritter chocolate bar. Chili flakes, gold flakes, all kinds of nuts. All that good stuff. So that's a fun place.
We went. It was pouring down rain, so it was getting busy pretty quickly. But it was so perfect because you had to go in somewhere, and what better place to go than to design your own chocolate bar, go up and check out the little museum, and then get your chocolate bar and have a little snack. It was absolutely perfect.
The other thing you have to do, I think, at least once in Berlin, you don't have to do it every time you go, is a Trabi tour.
But what's a Trabi?
Well, I'm glad you asked. If you were in Europe, in Germany especially, in the 80s,
or before the wall came down.
Sorry, yeah, in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe even in the mid 90s. But after that, you'd be pushing it. You would have seen a Trabant, an East German. Small, tiny little 2-door, 4-door. I think they even had a station wagon model, but they're all basically the same size. Small, very small.
It was the East German car that everybody gets when their number comes up. Because when you were in East Germany, you had to wait till you were a certain age, and then you had to put your name on a list, and then it took years, and finally you would get maybe your own car, and it would be a Trabant. It was the only thing you were going to get, and whatever came up is the one you took.
Fiberglass body, very little metal anywhere in the thing.
Very little anything.
Very bare bones, no frills. I don't even know what size
it had a push starter.
Yeah,
and so I think it had a choke.
Had a little stick.
It had a little 3 on the column, or 4 on the column, maybe.
Yeah, not even on the column. I think it's on the dash.
It was weird, but it was so much fun to drive.
And you would see these things chugging along the Autobahn. I don't think their top speed maybe was
50
miles an hour at most, like 80 kilometers per hour, belching out smoke. And more often than not, they'd be on the side of the road. Apparently easy to repair if you're a mechanic. I'm not a mechanic, but as my wife will tell you, I know nothing about cars, even though I was an aircraft electrician for 20 years.
Yeah, because
anyway, that was part of their draw. Was they were so simple mechanically that they were easy to fix, and so most of the ones you saw driving around had multiple Band-Aid fixes throughout the years. Who knows if anything was even original, and even if the original was good. So by the mid to late 90s, you rarely see one on the road because they had all broken down by then. But the flood of them coming across the border as soon as unification happened, and they could come across. But this smart company in Berlin bought up a bunch of these Trabis, refurbished them, and now you can rent them and take a tour around the city.
And in our case, stall in the middle of a
No, it didn't
road.
stall. The brakes would lock up.
Well, whatever it was a little bit disconcerting.
In fact, they were so upset about it because we still did the tour. He said, "Are you okay with it?" I said, "Yeah, I just need to know that when I tap the brakes, it's going to lock up and screech to a halt." So I basically didn't use the brakes. But they were so upset about that at the end they gave us a free
toy.
So we got 2 free little toy Trabants out of the deal.
Anyway, you got to go to Berlin. And here's the thing about Berlin. It's so easy to get to. There's lots of cheap airline options that fly in and out of Berlin.
The train.
There's the train. You can drive. And it's well worth it. If you're going to pick accommodations, you want to pick accommodations that are really central to the things that you're doing.
Near a tram stop or a subway stop.
I like the areas around Alexanderplatz.
I like Potsdamer Platz.
Potsdamer Platz. Yeah, I mean, they're just all beautiful places. If you check our blog, we have itineraries and, of course, suggestions for where to stay and things like that. We can't possibly tell you everything there is to tell you about Berlin. We've written hundreds, not hundreds.
Other than just go. Make it part of your Germany.
It's our number one pick for going, so go there.
The other place you really need to get to, and you're likely to go because of the flights again, is Munich.
Munich is amazing. It's funny because we haven't actually written a whole lot about Munich. It's one of those places for us that's just, and we've been, when I say 200 times, I am not exaggerating, because that's where we would catch every flight out. That's where we would go for a festival. That's where we would go for lunch. It was only a couple hours from where we lived. And it's just one of those things. It's like
the backyard syndrome.
Yeah.
You don't really tell people about or write about or go to all the places in your backyard. Because you're going to travel somewhere else.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of one of those conundrums. But Munich is such a great location. It's in the middle of Bavaria, and it's got a backdrop, all these beautiful, gorgeous mountains. It's got the Ludwig castles there that are in the surrounds and the countryside. And that's outside the city. Inside the city, you've just got tons and tons and tons of things to do. Again, there's more World War II stuff around, and Cold War stuff. Dachau concentration camp is there, which is one of those places that I think everyone should go for a lesson in humanity and what we definitely don't want to ever, come across again.
Do it early on in your trip. Everyone should experience it, but you don't want it to
you don't want it to be
your feeling of the place when you leave.
Yeah, I would say go earlier too.
Because Germany has really moved
way past.
They haven't forgotten, for sure. There's so many.
Well, the fact that they have all of these memorials and they own up to what happened, and they just matter of factly tell you what the history is. You've got to appreciate that, I believe.
It's not celebrated, for sure.
Right.
The opposite. It's Gemeinschaft. I mean, that's the word for it. It's a memory that you should never forget. Or let leave the human experience.
And it's just so much fun. It's got things for kids. It's got things for adults. Not Dachau. Munich. Yeah, I moved past Dachau. Right. But one of the things that you can't not think about when you think about Munich is beer.
Right.
As far as festivals, it's got the Oktoberfest, which, is all beer.
And one of the world's largest carnivals for the kids.
And also there's the Stark Beer Fest, and there's other things that happen throughout the year when it comes to beer. There's a hops museum there that is really good.
Yeah.
Well, it's right outside Munich. It's not actually in Munich.
About beer.
Yeah.
The hops museum is incredible.
And, there's markets and cathedrals and museums. And then there's World War II things like the Hofbrauhaus. The Hofbrauhaus is a beer pub that's very famous. And it's one of the beers of the Oktoberfest. And it was where Hitler would hold Nazi rallies. I mean, so it's got history. So
they started the planning for the Third Reich.
For the Third Reich, yeah.
So it's got that really infamous history.
Yeah.
But I love it as for the beer place. And it's just a cool place to go. It's big. You say pub, and it is
it's a huge pub,
but it's massive.
It serves full-on dinners, which are delicious.
Yeah, it's got a huge beer halls, several of them. And there's brass bands playing.
Always exactly an Oompa band
playing, and people dancing, and of course the waitresses carrying the huge mugs of beer out to the tables.
And what I love about it is it's so German in that they have big tables, and you don't make reservations. I don't know if you can make reservations if you have groups, but we never made a reservation because the idea is that you share the table with whoever's there.
Just like you would at the Oktoberfest.
I have shared tables at the Hofbrauhaus with a German astronaut, with tourists from Taiwan, with just locals that have been going to we sat with a guy who has gone to the Hofbrauhaus every single night. I think at that point it had been like for 7 years in a row. Can you imagine going to? I mean, I guess that's like Friends.
He had his own
Or Cheers.
Stein locker in one of the banks of Stein shelves, which are really cool too.
So basically, if it's hard to find a place, you just walk up to someone who's got 2 seats or 4 seats open and say, "Can I sit here?" And you're bound to make friends. I mean, you've got this great beer, great food.
Don't sit at your own table.
Great atmosphere. Yeah, don't sit up. Don't. In fact, go there with the purpose of sitting with somebody new.
Yeah.
It makes it
have
so
a beer
amazing.
with them and spark up a conversation and make new friends.
Yeah. And so, and the Hofbrauhaus is only one of the beer halls. I think there's 7 or 8.
All the major breweries have one.
And another one that we really love is the Augustina Brau. They're just all good. And the thing is, you've got to go to all of them. And you've got to enjoy, and they all have the Oompa bands, and they all have little shows, and they all have like the slap dancing shows and the later Hosen.
Could you imagine a pub crawl to the major?
Well, someone should do that, because that'd be
You certainly
bucks.
couldn't drink a liter every time you went.
No, you couldn't. You could maybe drink a shot glass, have a little.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe a 0.33.
But Munich also has some palaces to visit.
Mm-hmm.
It has great museums. There's just so much to do. Well, maybe we'll get around to writing an article on it sometime.
Well, we talked about our Munich Zoo experience.
Oh yeah,
At the
we've
height
mentioned
of the Cold War, where I think we've shut the
Munich
place
Zoo.
down for a little while.
So we have a lot to tell you about that whole area. But you can't go, in my opinion, you just can't go to Germany and not go to Munich.
Yeah.
It is so quintessentially German. And
it's one of the airport there is one of the major hubs for flying in and out of Germany and Europe, for that matter.
Actually, I think the flights are cheaper into Munich than they are into Frankfurt. They
Oftentimes
prefer you to
are.
go there. And what's also nice about Munich is it's right on the Austrian border. You can get across Austria within, I don't know, at least an hour.
It's the perfect place to start a Eurail Pass multi-week trip
To anywhere,
but especially to Eastern Europe.
like we did. And then it also has like 8 Christmas markets, all kinds of Christmas markets. So that's a lot of fun too. There's lots to do.
Yes. Well, after Munich, I would say my next favorite Germany destination has to be Trier. Trier's got, again, a rich history for us, if not for all of Germany. It's the oldest city in Germany.
It's the oldest city in Germany, and yet it has not quite as many tourists as a lot of other places.
As you would think, yeah.
Yeah, you would
It's
expect
small.
a lot more.
It never really grew very much beyond what it was when we were there. And it's got its roots in Roman history, 2,000 years. I mean, that definitely takes it to the Roman period. It was one of the Roman outposts that became a capital of the region. And of course, after Christianity, it became a seat of the religious government. Bishops have had their seats there for 1,000 years. And all of this history still remains, I wouldn't say completely intact,
But fairly intact.
but enough so that it's there and you can walk through it and you can experience it. The Porta Negra is an old Roman gate to the city that's a multi-tiered columns and towers. It's the symbol of the city for good reason.
And you know what? We've seen Roman ruins all over the world, and there is nothing like the Porta Negra.
There really isn't.
I mean, it is really a show of strength, and you can really see how the Romans conquered the world. You really can.
And it's so intact that it's just incredible. But there's Roman baths that you can explore.
An amphitheater.
An amphitheater, which is one of my favorite Roman sites in the city. The Basilica was originally built during Constantine's time. I think it's been expanded on since, but the main building is ancient.
And really, it hasn't changed that much because it's just, well, A, it's massive.
Right.
But B, it's not like walking into a cathedral. It's bare. It's Spartan. Basically, it's just one big nave and, with a small cross.
It's the largest surviving building from Roman times. So that's It's surprising that there's not more tourists going to Trier.
And I think the city is pretty.
It's a really pretty city.
You know, some of the
Nestled on the Mosel River.
It's got just beautiful colors. The fountain is brightly painted. The houses around the Hauptmarkt are brightly painted. There is a market in the Hauptmarkt all the time.
Yeah, the walking center, the Walkplatz, is I think one of my favorite in Germany. It's not too big, but it's still a good length. It runs from the Porta Negra several blocks into the city, into the center of the city.
Even by Karl Marx's house where he was born.
Right. Definitely a spot you need to look at.
Just lots of see and do. Again, there's another palace there, an electoral palace that has gorgeous gardens that you can walk around for free. Great museums, a Roman bridge, just tons of stuff to see and do. And it's just, I don't know why, it just feels so much more relaxed as a destination, mainly because I think you don't get tons and tons of tourists. It's also right on the edge of the border, right up against Luxembourg and France. And maybe that's why, because people aren't necessarily going to Germany who are in that area.
They're going to Luxembourg, they're going to Belgium, they're going to France.
Which are great destinations as well.
But that whole region of Germany, the Eifel region, I think has the best food also because of that.
Oh, me too.
And so you can get, well, we talk about schnitzel being one of our favorites.
But especially the Jaeger schnitzel. That's where we fell in love with it.
The Jaeger schnitzel in the Eifel region is the best. The best mushrooms.
Well, and
the best sauces.
And almost all, maybe not all, but almost all the beer that's served in Trier is from our favorite place where we got married.
Bitburg.
Was from Bitburg. And they have a Bitburger Pils. And actually, if you have time to drive up to Bitburg, it's a cute little town as well.
You can tour the brewery.
And usually they give you taste for sure. When we were there, they gave us full packages of beer to take home with us.
But there's nothing like a Bitburger Pils.
There just isn't.
Fresh from tap within 100 kilometers of the brewery. It is
amazing.
Incredible.
So we definitely want you to try the beer. We want you to try the schnitzel. And what's nice about the food there is it has a bit of a French twist on it because it's so close to France. So it has all the German goodness and all French goodness wrapped up into one. A couple of restaurants that we really would recommend that you go to would be the Domstein, which is right next to the Dome, the cathedral there, so you can't miss it. And it's just known for its good, solid German food, which, like we said, we love.
But it also has, it kind of keeps the theme of Rome alive.
Yeah.
And it has some old Roman dishes
on the menu. Yeah. Which are different. So well worth trying. Then if you like potatoes, there's a whole...
Which I don't really know. Like, I don't know why potatoes aren't thought of more as a German food.
Yeah,
like
because
wurst,
let me tell you.
of course, is everywhere. But potatoes are everywhere, served in so many different forms. Bratkartoffel, and of course French fries, but the Bratkartoffel are home fries, what we would think of as home fries. They're usually cooked in some sort of either bacon fat or pork fat or some rendered fat with some onion, just to a nice crisp, really delicious.
And they have their own form of tater tot.
Tater tots, yeah, which are delicious.
Oh my gosh, they're so beyond a tater tot.
They're not like ours. It's like a mashed potato that's been formed into a tater tot and then fried. Delicious potato pancakes with applesauce. So there's a potato restaurant in Trier that you should go to, Kartoffelkiste. And try all these different potatoes.
Well, and especially for the kids, you know how you're traveling and you eat local food after local. I mean, at least here, there's going to be tons for the kids. So take the kids to the Kartoffelkiste. And then another one we really like, just mainly because of the beer and just the whole atmosphere. The Gemütlichkeit, the comfortability. I can't say it in English, but Gemütlichkeit in German means it feels cozy.
And there's plenty of places to stay.
Brasserie de Trier. We have to tell you the name. Of course, we'll put it in the show notes, but still. And we get ahead of ourselves sometimes.
But yeah, that's just a really good, comfortable German, go in. There's a Stammtisch that you, of course, don't want to sit at because a Stammtisch is reserved
for locals.
Anywhere you see a Stammtisch, the food's probably going to be pretty good.
I agree.
because you know locals are going there.
I agree.
So maybe that's the good tip for German restaurants. Look for a place that's got a Stammtisch, and you can see it'll be in a busy
Prominent part
restaurant.
of
The easiest way to see it is when it's in a otherwise busy restaurant, and you have one large table that is nobody sitting at, and it's got a sign on that says Stammtisch.
Yep. Sometimes
And
they'll
it
sit
just
you there.
so
but not
happens that
very
there were no
often.
locals there yet.
There are a lot of places to stay. We like staying down on the Mosel. The Mosel is probably
Anywhere
our
on the river
favorite
is your best.
river.
After
and
that, somewhere near the Walkplatz.
near the Walkplatz, yeah. But
But
the
you don't-
river's not far from the Walkplatz.
Yeah, and nothing's far from anything if you get a central hotel. There are buses. There's no subway. It's not that big of a city. It's a small city or a large town, I would say. So anything central, and you can walk to anything.
Yeah, it's fun.
Also a great place to start a Mosel River cruise.
Yeah. Well, the Mosel's got great wines, so that's a whole nother podcast
Yes, it
too.
is.
Oh my gosh, we
But
have so much
something
to
you
tell
should do in Trier for sure is at least spend half a day and drive down the Mosel to Bernkastel and back, just for the views.
Just
if
for the
nothing
views.
else.
Well, and stop at the castles, darn.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. As much as we love Trier, we could wax poetic about Trier all day, but we need to move
We've
on.
only got so much time.
One of our favorite cities is Nuremberg. And it kind of took a while to grow on us, Nuremberg did. We had been there and it seems so sort of stark and different, but after living only an hour from there and spending so much more time in it, we really love it. And now we know how to tell you to love it too.
Yeah.
That's the key. Because we just didn't know what to do when we were there.
Well, it was mostly bombed out during the war. I mean, that was the center of Germany at the time, and it bore the brunt of it. So,
Well, and that's where they had the Nuremberg trials. So that's what most people might think of when they hear that city town. And they still have the Nazi rally grounds, which has got a really fabulous museum about the history of the area and the Nazis
and the war crimes and the war trials and what happened. Again, one of those places kind of like Dachau where you probably should do it early on so you get a good sense of the history that took place. But you don't want to do it at the end where that's what you leave with.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
There's a castle right in the middle of town.
The city walls go around the old town. And that's really where you want to focus most of your time.
And they have great restaurants down there. And it's got a really nice festive atmosphere most of the year. But I think in contrast to Berlin, I think really the best time to go to Nuremberg is the summer. Because there's always... I don't know. There's just always something going on.
There's outdoor cafes all downtown, everywhere. There's beer gardens. It's just
beautiful.
A beautiful place to go and sit. It doesn't get too hot, and it's really the summer. Well, spring, summer, and fall are just beautiful times in that area.
And a lot of the riverboat cruises go out of Nuremberg. It's one of the starting points. So if you are one of those people, which I think would be great to take one of those river cruises, take an extra day or two and spend it in Nuremberg on either end of your trip because you won't regret it.
Right.
I think it's a start off point. So probably at the beginning.
Most people fly into Nuremberg. It has a small airport. Yeah. It's a great place for cheap flights in and out of Germany or to
cheap
Nuremberg.
Flights. Yeah. The cheap airlines.
Yeah. Ryanair is there.
Ryanair is there. There's a few. You just need to sort of check them, but you can get some really good deals going in and out of Nuremberg.
It's a very accessible airport. It was really our go-to airport when we lived in that region.
We checked it first every single time.
Munich was twice as far away, and of course you can get anywhere from Munich, but if you could get there from Nuremberg without adding too much of a connection, that was what we did.
Yeah, he's right. There are one things that Nuremberg is really famous for is their wursts. So even though we like to pound into you guys' heads that
there's more out there,
there's more than wurst, Nuremberg is the place that you want to go to for a wurst. And they're these little 4-inch bratwurst, basically pork sausage that they serve, and you can buy like a 4-plate, a 6-plate, a 9-plate, a 12-plate, on and up. Yeah. And most of the restaurants serve them along with other Bavarian specialties like Obatsta, which is a like a dip. It's a cheese dip that you put on your
paprika and
on your bread, and
like
it's
a soft, almost
super
a cream
yummy.
cheese mixed up. Yeah, that's really good.
And we found out that you could take learn how to make the bratwurst right there at a butcher in Nuremberg. So we did that one
It was
time.
a little bit out of Nuremberg, but
south of Nuremberg.
Definitely in the region.
But it was
a day trip would be good, or a half day trip.
Yeah. We did that with our girls. It was so much fun. Yeah.
We enjoyed everything. Except for maybe at the end, the tasting. I think nobody liked the bratwurst ice cream.
Because they served us bratwurst, I don't know, 20
raw
ways.
Pork ice cream. No, thank you.
It wasn't raw pork ice cream.
I don't know what it was. Wasn't very good.
We had raw pork and then we had ice cream.
We did.
Neither one of those
tartare. Wait, what?
To our liking, but there was plenty in between that was good.
Yeah. And just getting into the butcher and chopping up the meat and grinding it and making our own sausage. That was a blast.
But Nuremberg has a good mix of things to do. And one of the unsung heroes, I think, of the museums is the Albrecht Dürer house.
Yeah.
If you know anything about art, he's a fantastic artist. And that's where he grew up. And another thing you can find there is Lebkuchen, which is a very famous German cookie, especially around Christmas time. Nuremberg has one of the most famous Christmas markets.
Probably most people would identify with that one.
It's not my favorite Christmas market just because it's huge, and there's lots of people. However, in saying that, it is unique in a lot of ways. It has these little plum people, prune people, statues, which are just bizarre. And I mean, it was one of the very first ones, and it's very popular. So it's well worth checking out.
You definitely have to do it. Fight the crowds.
So go to Nuremberg. And our very last place is another place that we really, 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 really love. But unfortunately, so do thousands of other people.
It's probably one of the highest tourist destinations.
And the reason why is because if you want a fairy tale city, a charming, quaint, beautiful city, Rothenburg is it.
You have to go to Rothenburg, Ob der Tauber.
That's right.
There are a couple of different Rothenburgs, so be careful. Don't just find Rothenburg on the map or type Rothenburg into Google and head to the first one you see. Germany has a lot of these little towns that are the same name, so they'll add on to the name a descriptor. In this case, it's Ob der Tauber. The Tauber is the river that it's on. And it's, like you said, it's one of the cutest, most charming cities in the country. It's an old medieval walled town that is basically intact. The only thing that's been done to it is the maintenance and the upkeep and some restoration when needed. It survived both world wars. It survived the 100 Years' War. It's just been a crossroads and a trade center for 1,000 years. And you can walk the city walls. You can walk into the old town.
And go up into the towers and walk through the...
I want to say it's all pedestrian inside the walls. Is that true? Vehicles come in. If you're staying there, you can come and park in your hotel's parking if it has it. Which if you're looking for a hotel in Rothenburg, make sure it has parking. Otherwise, you're parking outside the city walls, which is safe and it's okay, but it gets more expensive. So yeah, you're in this old medieval walled town with, of course, the half timber houses, the Fachwerk, as it's called in Germany, the cathedral where you can climb the bell tower for the most stupendous view of the city. I did that. Corky did not.
That's right. I didn't.
Not with her knees. Again, a Christmas market that is small. I mean, it's much
small. And what's cool about it is it really winds through the streets.
Yeah.
And so some places are really narrow. Some places are a little less narrow.
It'll open up into a small plaza where there might be bands. So it's definitely decentralized. You have to explore to find all of it or get a map.
Which is fun.
Which is the fun part. And it is a very busy location tourist wise. So of course their Christmas market is too. But surprisingly, there's fewer tourists there in winter that go to Rotenburg.
Oh, there are definitely fewer tourists
during
in
the Christmas
winter,
market.
but it can still get a little
So
bit crowded.
it doesn't. I don't think it gets the crowds of Nuremberg,
Oh, definitely not. No.
but it's you're not like walking through on your own for sure.
And it's well known for its Christmas because Katie Wolfhard, which is the quintessential
Christmas
Christmas
decorations,
decoration store in Germany, they have all these little handmade
Wooden
wooden Christmas ornaments
crush
and
sets.
and smokers and nutcrackers, and they just have beautiful things. So they not only have a store in Rotenburg, but they also have a Christmas museum there that's worth going to, and that's open all year long. And even if you go in the summer, you will want to go to the Katie Wolfhard store and stock up on your Christmas decorations because they're the most beautiful I've ever seen in the world.
The crime museum, the crime and punishment museum, there is, I think, one of the best.
It's done very, very well. And what I like about it is it's just so outrageous and different, and things that they use to torture people and kill witches and everything.
A lot of it is just punishments for, like, the baker. If his loaf of bread wasn't the right weight, they would put him in the stocks for a day or two
to humiliate him.
Stuff. So not so much just seeing like the punishments, but they have a really good exhibits that show the crimes that were medieval crimes. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Lots of good food. Of course, it's in Schwabian, Bavaria. So Schwabian food is like dumplings.
And Franconian food, which is one of my favorite foods in all of
became one of our favorite foods.
Germany, because we live there. So we know how good it is. If you get a chance to try what they call a Schäufele, which is a pork shoulder, it has a little bit of crispy skin on it, and it has the bone, and it's usually served with a potato dumpling and
Juicy,
some rotkohl.
Tender pork.
And it's, I'm talking amazing. And you'll know that it's one of the dishes because most of the Germans will be eating it.
That's right.
Because it's that delicious.
Where do we usually go there? We have a restaurant that we go it's
called
like right in the center.
Reichsküchenmeister.
Yeah, it's also attached to a hotel. So that's
we
a
stayed
really good
there,
hotel.
and it was a really pretty little hotel.
Super comfortable. Of course, it's a medieval building. Everything in town is. So good food and a good place to stay, and right central. And I believe it has parking too.
Yeah, so you can eat anywhere probably, but that's definitely one of our. And it's got a beautiful beer garden, so a beautiful place to sort of get out of the sun if it's in the summer, or go inside and have some German coziness in the winter. One thing you should try while you're there is what they call a Schneeballen, and this is a pastry, basically like pie dough almost, that's formed in the shape of a snowball.
It's like you take a pastry, flatten it out, and cut it in strips, and then you roll it into like a ball. And then you they bake it, and then you dip it in chocolate, or you coat
white chocolate or white powder,
sprinkles, all kinds of things. So but it's about the size of a good snowball.
It's almost like the idea of a donut, and all the different ways you can do a donut, but it's with pie crust.
For me, it depends on what it's covered, what the topping.
Well, I think to anybody, because the pie dough itself doesn't taste that much. Yeah. But it is what they're famous for, and they are pretty to take pictures of, so it's well worth going in and having a try. But I guarantee, if you go to Germany, you're going to love Rotenburg Obter Tower. Well, these are our top 5, and probably you can hear from our voices how much we love these places and go back to them over and over again. And yeah, I can't wait to go back again. So let us know if you go and what you think of them.
Thanks for joining us at Streets and Eats, where we want to encourage you to savor the adventure. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and tell your friends.
Ciao for now.